sing one more song. The Solid Rock, 139. Number 139. Can we stand for this hymn? Let's all rise.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to see everyone here, and we really thank God for this opportunity to be gathering in this manner, and we thank God for making this program possible. And so we welcome you all in the name of our Lord Jesus and to this CityChurch. I'll say a word of prayer and we will start this program this evening. I believe some of our little ones are kept in someone else's house to be able to, for the parents to be able to come here. And so may God honor your trust and bless all of us here, even as we spend this time together. So I will lead us in a word of prayer. Shall we look to God in prayer? Our Father, we worship you, we thank you, and we praise your name. Thank you for each one of our lives. Thank you for bringing us together. Thank you for this beautiful evening that you have granted to us. We pray, O Lord, that you will bless our time. We also pray and remember all, especially the children at home in different places. May you protect them and may you guide them, and may you lead and guide us so that our time together this evening will be a fruitful one, effective one, O Lord, for your name's sake. We commit all of us, the rest of this evening, into your hand and pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Yes. I would first of all like to welcome and introduce to us our speaker, Mrs. Buno Iralu. Can you please stand and, so that, shall we give her the hand? Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for your time here. She is not very new to many of us. She has been with us, our church, few years back. I don't exactly remember, but she has come and ministered to us and in one of the family seminars. And so we are so happy to have our ma'am here again. And Dr. Buno Iralu, she's a lecturer in Shalom Bible Seminary. And we are so happy for her life and ministry. And I again would like to thank God for making this possible. I should say at the right time. And so may God bless you and your ministry and even this evening. I just want to read a quote from one of the author who writes a book on parenting. She says like this: parenting is messy. Oh, it's also wonderful and highest calling of our lives. But it's probably one of the hardest things that we will ever do. And that is why we are here with a parenting seminar. Before I just give time to her, I would like to share a few thoughts. Since we work with the Sunday school ministry, and most of you are again our Sunday school children's parents here. And so I would like just say a few words. It has been especially with after the pandemic, it has affected all of us, yet more to our children. And as we began Sunday school after a few years, 2 years of gap, we ourselves felt very lost, confused, and also children, they seem to be very lost, very confused, unable to focus. I'm just sharing these few things according to our own experiences in the Sunday school rooms. Unable to focus, unable to memorize a verse. And that was very heartbreaking. And they're just unable to do that. And I thought I was thinking to myself, how could we do that? And we as a church also started praying for restoration, for healing, and all these things. And this event is also one of the answered prayers that God has, brought us together. Many children have problems. Many are suffering. There are many who have lost their social skills, manners, or many more. Many children are praying for their parents, in particularly praying that my father would come to church. Many of our children are praying and even crying for their parents. I don't know for what reason, but they do sincerely pray for their parents. Many children are suffering, unable to share to their parents, even going through some abuses, physical abuses by their relatives or things like that. And they're so scared to break out and share with their parents. And there are many students who are so active, so troubled, and we also think that they are problem in the Sunday school or maybe in the school, but then they must be going through lots of problems. And so parenting seminar, this is just one step. I believe it's going to be a great help for us for the sake of our children. And it's so nice to have all of us here. I also sent a message saying, I wish I can say both parents are compulsory to attend this seminar. I meant it. I wish I could say it's compulsory that both father and mother should come and attend this. Just seeing, the condition and even the things that our children are going through. And of course, not just that. I also, just few Sundays as I stood just before the service, greeting children, welcoming, and saying, one of the little girls I said, good morning, how are you? And she said so lovingly, oh, I'm fine, thank you. Thanks for asking. And how are you? And I felt so good. She's developing that culture. And I'm sure parents are still teaching. Parents are teaching. And so there are many good things. And we as teachers, we also feel good that children are coming up and, seem to be opening up. And I say that God is working. And many parents are also praying. As a church also, we have been praying for restoration upon these children. And so we are here again this evening, to get more of, please, as you sit, feel free, think of whatever, we need to, even to ask questions in the end. And so please feel free, think about it and feel free to do that. So with these words, I would like to welcome our speaker and hand over the time to her, after which our pastor will take over for the question and answers time. Please.
Good evening. Thank you so much for having me. I want to think that I'm not a stranger to CityChurch. Like our leader just said, I've been to your church a few times in the past, but it's been a while. And this is my first time in your new church, and such a beautiful church this is. I've enjoyed looking around and, just, basking in the whole environment, the whole ambience here, so nice. We praise God for what is going on in this place. I know a lot of good things have been coming out from this church. God is at work, and that's so exciting. I'm sincerely grateful to your leadership today for inviting me to speak on something I am very, very passionate about, and also something I wish to learn more, and something I wish to join with fellow parents as we go on this journey of parenting. It's a huge task, but it's also a God-given task, and it's an exciting journey, I would say. Many years ago, when our two boys were still very young, a lady who I respected a lot, who is also in the Christian ministry, said something to me. Because my husband and I are in Christian ministry, we go around speaking, we preach a lot. She said, say all you have to, preach all you have to now when your kids are small, because when your children grow up, they're going to shut your mouth. That was something they said, and I was like, what? Because I take my calling from God very seriously, and I take it as something that I would be in for the rest of my life. It's not something I will do when my kids behave or when things are okay. One day when things go wrong, I'll leave it and go to something else. I don't look at my vocation as something like that. And so what this lady probably she probably meant well, but what she said kind of shocked me and also made me think very hard on what is this about parenting that makes many parents feel so scared, And even as I prepare myself for today and for similar talks I give here and there, I always ask myself, what qualifies anyone to give a talk on parenting? If it is 24 years of being a parent, then I qualify, Our firstborn will be turning 24 tomorrow. Tomorrow is his birthday. And so my husband and I have been parents for 24 years. But I don't know. I don't think there is anything under the sun that qualifies anyone to, to give a talk on parenting. It's different for everybody. But at the same time, being a parent is a joy, it's a privilege. It's a responsibility. And there's so much to learn. I don't think there is any parent who reaches a point in time in life and is able to say, I have arrived as a parent. I don't think anyone can say that. So as I think about parenting, I am reminded of God's love. The task, the business of parenting is like God's love. It's endless. It goes on and on and on. So with all my limitations and perhaps even ignorance, because I've not been a parent for that long, and I know there are a lot more experienced people right here in our midst who've gone through the whole distance. So with my inexperiences, with my even failures, I stand here to talk about things I've learned from God's Word and also from my observation of life and my interactions with young people in my workplace and also as a parent. So I'm here as a learner myself. So the topic that we want to look at this evening is, does being family matter anymore? Is family outdated? Is the concept of family outdated? Is family irrelevant in this age? Family. Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay. Does being family matter anymore? Family. When we read in the Bible, we find that family is God's own idea. It originated from God's mind, from God's heart. We know in Genesis chapter 2, verses 18, 21 onwards, God said, "It is not good for the man to be alone," and God created a helpmate for him, another human being suitable for him, just right for him. God ordained it, and God delighted in family right from the start. God saw it, and He liked it, and He said it's very good, and He blessed the first two people, the couple, the family. When we read through the Bible, there are several passages in the Bible where we find that the Word of God exalts the family, especially in Psalm number 127, verse 3, we read, "Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him." The Bible exalts the family. The Bible talks cheerfully, joyfully, hopefully about the family. And the Bible also places big responsibilities on parents. This we find from Deuteronomy chapter 6, verses 1 to 10. When the Israelites were about to enter the promised land, God gave a very sober message to parents. It's called the Shema in Hebrew in this passage in Deuteronomy chapter 6. To teach your children diligently, to talk about God's goodness and faithfulness at all times, every day, from morning till night. And we also read in Proverbs chapter 22, verse 6, train a child up in the way he should go. Parents are to train children, their children, in the way they should go. And we also find verses in Ephesians and also in Colossians exhorting parents to teach, guide, show their children how to live life, to be respect-worthy so that children will be able to respect their parents. The family should be the first and primary provider of love, care, and security to children from beginning to end. Deuteronomy 6. So as we try to understand the whole thing about family, what is family? We know that the family is a place to grow people. It's where children are born. It's where a child is born and the child is fed and the child is given the basic needs and the child grows to adulthood. It is a place to grow people. It is also a center of creativity. That sounds very simple, but when we look at families and when we meet children or young people and interact with them, especially as they turn into adolescent years, a lot of times young people walk around not knowing what they are good at. Young people do not know what they should study. Young people cannot decide for themselves what their strengths are, or they are not able to know what their strengths are. And that points to the fact that in the family where parents should be talking about, what children are good at, what they should be pursuing in life, what gives them joy, what they do well. The family should be the place where children, right from the time they're, born and able to interact with the parents, children should be encouraged in the areas where their interests are. Children should be encouraged and they should be helped to discover their gifts and their talents. All of us, not just our children, but all of us have come into the world with gifts and talents from God. And it is in our home that we should be recognizing, as parents, we should be recognizing what our children are good at, what our children are interested in, and encourage them towards those directions where their gifts and talents are. It should be a center of creativity. A lot of times, unfortunately, that never happens. There are many young people in our towns and in our villages who have never heard an encouraging word from their parents. It's very sad, but it's true. Culturally, I think, we, especially our parents' generation or maybe our grandparents' generation, we were told never to praise our own children, We were told never to say anything positive about our own, something or someone who belongs to us, because that's shameful, that amounts to bragging or being boastful. But I think there is a place where parents must praise and encourage their children. And so think of it. The family should be a center of creativity. The family should also be a place of safety and security. The home should be the safest place on earth. When I think about that, a lot of times, when I sit down with young people and listen to their stories, my heart breaks because I come across young people who are so gifted, who have so much of promise and potential in them, but who just refuse to do anything. They just, exist. And a lot of times, when you dig deeper, you discover that they've been brought up in homes where there was no safety or no security at all for various reasons. A lot of times it's in alcoholic homes, in homes where the father or both the father and the mother drank. And so these children grew up in situations where the home was the last place they wanted to be in. And as they grow up, they have no qualms about walking out of the house and not going back at all. When the home should be a place of safety and security, there are so many homes where children do not feel safe. On the outside, on the surface, a lot of things look okay, even in our society. But there are many painful stories of young girls having been abused by their tuition teachers, by their neighbors, by their own cousins, by their own fathers, by their own grandfathers. Very sad, because the place of safety and security should be the home, the family. The family is also and should also be a transmitter of values. As we mentioned in Deuteronomy chapter 6, the family is where parents should be passing down values and norms and traditions from the past which are priceless, which have meaning, which have purpose to their children. The family should be a transmitter of values. But what about families then, where the parents don't have any moral values, where parents don't have any moral or spiritual standards? How will parents pass down spiritual, moral values if they themselves have no values? The truth is, the family should be a transmitter of values. The family is also a place which is not perfect. And it's good to know that, because we know there are no perfect families on earth. Every family has its own share of blessings and also its own share of problems. There are no perfect families, but we learn to be family despite the problems that we have. It's when we think others have perfect homes and we don't have perfect homes, that's when we start creating problems for ourselves and for others. But it's so important that we remind ourselves that there are no perfect families on earth. The family, especially the Christian family, should be a place where Christ is honored. Christ is the head of the home. In the past, I don't see such frames anymore, but I remember when I was a little kid growing up, in our own home and in many other homes, there would be a frame in people's homes, in our homes, saying, Christ is the head of this home, And when we were small, we did not understand what that meant, but when we think about it, a Christian home is and should be a home where Christ is honored, where Christ is the head of the home. Family life in the 20th century. Someone said, William Doherty, we reinvented family life in the 20th century, but never wrote a user's manual. And I think that's very true. Family life has been reinvented, but there's no user's manual. We don't know what to look at. We don't know where to find solutions when the modern challenges come and hit the family. There is a revolution in the structure and expectations of family life that is so visible. That is true. Family life is no longer what it used to be. Even though, many of us here might not have lived for decades and decades, or maybe most could be, half a century. We've not been on earth too long, but we've seen the big changes that have come in families, in homes. There are two principal drains on the energy of many families. The first is the time demands outside the home. And the second, electronic technology inside the home. The two big drains. We are starved for time. As family members, the parents are starved for time. The children are starved for time. Whether we are outside the home or inside the home, we don't seem to have enough time anymore. And that's draining our energies as families. Society in this fallen world assaults the family. And when we look at the West and when we listen to stories in the West, the way, people have already, washed their hands over the whole thing about family, that family is no longer needed anymore. Society in this fallen world assaults the family. Someone said to be family in this age is like building a fire in the rain, and I think that's so true. That tells of the challenge, the difficulty of being family, of doing family in this age, because it's a fallen world, yes, and on top of that, the so-called modern things and philosophies that are floating around, they assault the family. Children and young people are growing up in a world that does not promote biblical values, and this is the scary part. We can't keep our children inside the house all the time. There will come a time when we have to, just let them out. And as they go out, we can't follow them around to check, what is there in front of them or behind them or on their side. It's a world that does not promote biblical values. And that's the kind of world that our children are growing up in. That's the kind of world our children are entering into. And that's why it's so important for us as Christian parents to be alert, to be conscious about what could happen, what could be there, what could be lurking around in the dark or even in the light. Our children are growing up in a world that does not promote anything that is biblical. The past and the present, there are some fundamental differences that we see between the past and now. The first is technology. We know how technology has grown over the years. Sometimes, in my class, as I teach young people who are in their, early 20s, mid 20s, sometimes I ask them if they know what a typewriter is. And some of them know what a typewriter is. When I ask them if they know what a cyclostyling machine is, they're like, what is that, Our time, when we were growing up, I remember using typewriters. I remember, churning out song sheets in a cyclostyling machine. Those things are no more. They belong to the museum now. Technology has grown so much. And knowledge and exposure to violence. How much of violence or pictures of violence have we witnessed, even in this month or these last couple of months? Think of videos we've seen of Manipur, of Myanmar, of the world. So much of violence. And I guess even in the past there was violence, but because technology, we did not have the means of seeing some of those things, we did not see them. But now, whether we want or not, things have come and invaded our lives so much that we know so much. We know more than what is helpful for us. we're exposed to so much more than what we need, actually. Knowledge of and exposure to violence. And another difference between today and in the past is the fragmented family. The way families have become, so fractured and so fragmented for various reasons. We will look at that very soon. The family is no longer that tight-knit group of people where love is shared openly and freely anymore in many places. Another thing is knowledge of and exposure to sexuality. And I don't have to elaborate on that. Children, forget about adults. Children are already exposed to adult material which are not suitable for adults themselves. Not just suitable, but not helpful for adults themselves. People are talking about, experts are talking about, secondhand sex. We've all heard about secondhand smoke, and medical experts did enough researches, and then they told us that secondhand smoke, the smoke that you inhale from another person who is smoking, even if you are not a smoker, secondhand smoke is harmful for the one who inhales the smoke. And now there is talk on secondhand sex, which is you're not engaged in it yourself, but you are watching it and you are seeing it, and that's affecting your brain. And people who study the brain talk about something called erototoxins, which is eros toxins, the poisoning of the brain. As people go to pornographic sites, how what you see, what you watch, start poisoning your brain. And experts tell us that as you visit certain sites again and again, a path is cut in your brain where it becomes so smooth that even with a very little effort, your mind is able to quickly go back to that path and be able to visualize everything you saw yesterday or last night or this morning. And that's why people are saying pornography is the new drug. And there are organizations which are fighting, educating people to stay off pornography, because the damage done to the brain can be permanent also. It's a long way back, returning to, to redeem yourself from habits like that. And so this is not just, for adults, but for children, knowledge of and exposure to sexuality. Our children are growing up in a highly visually driven and highly sexualized age, and that's scary. That's so dangerous. And the fifth difference is neutral moral and religious values. We hear about humanism, the philosophy of humanism, which is in a way very good. As I came in, I saw that your church is one of the modern churches, and perhaps in Northeast India also. You have provisions for people in wheelchairs to come in. Humanism has made some things like this possible. Humanism is, honoring individual rights, even those people who are differently abled. And it's good. Humanism has brought a lot of good to the world, but the sad thing is, the sad reality is, humanism has also paved the way for unnecessary and unhealthy things to creep into human life. Like, it's my body, it's my right. What I do is my wish, because it's my decision. You don't have any right to question me. You don't have any right to say anything about what I do and how I live my life, because it's my life. Humanism has opened the door for many good things to come in, but in the process, a lot of evil and unnecessary, unhelpful things have also crept in. So the new moral and religious values, which one time were not there, and today modernism, postmodernism, all those philosophies which have come in and which have made people bold and vocal and rebellious. So those are some of the 5 fundamental differences that family is operating in, the climate in which the family is operating. The face of the family is changing. Family is no longer how it looked or how it was once upon a time. The traditional family, which composed of the mother, father, children, and the nuclear family, today, yes, we still have traditional families. We still have nuclear families where the father, mother, and the children live together as family. We still have them, but today we also see the single-parent family for various reasons. It could be because of death of a spouse, or it could be, a child being born out of wedlock, or it could be, divorce. It could be, separation. It could be anything. It could be children born out of unusual circumstances also, the single-parent family. And we also have the blended family, where there are the step-parents, step-siblings, half-siblings, and such others. And also extended families. And I think in the Naga context, extended families are quite popular because we stay connected with whoever is related to us. So the blended family. Perhaps in our part of the world, some forms of families have not reached us in an explicit way, but we know there are same-sex parents now, not just now, but since some years ago, and we know India also legalized same-sex marriages, and I'm quite sure there are same-sex couples who have adopted children and who are bringing up children already in India. And we are told there are same-sex couples in our part of the world also. I don't know if they have started adopting children, but we never know. Whatever happens somewhere happens in our part of the world sooner or later, so we don't know. But one good thing that is coming out now from same-sex parents' home is, especially in the West, the children of the same-sex parents are now adults. Legally, they are legal adults. And now they're beginning to raise their voices. And they're beginning to say, nobody asked for my permission for me to grow up in a home where my parents are both male or my parents are both female. And they are taking their parents to court and they are fighting for their rights. And that noise is making people rethink a lot of things that need rethinking. So, things happen, people make a lot of noises and people think they have it. But we see, as we study history, as we study human behavior, in a matter of 2-3 decades, the course of things change. And so with the same-sex parents, they're beginning to face the music now. And there are trans parents also, trans parents, transgenders who have children. And another thing that's doing its rounds right now is gender-neutral families. It's interesting how human beings have this capacity to think up all kinds of ideas and philosophies and start promoting them. There are families where they do not want to say if their children are male or female. And they are hurt when people ask whether the baby is a boy or a girl. Because these parents think the children should grow up and decide for themselves whether they want to be male or female. It's absurd, but it's happening in gender-neutral families. And they refer to their children as they. One child, but that child is referred to as they. I don't know what they are thinking or they is thinking. You know, they are butchering the English grammar also in the process. But it's a big thing going on right now, especially in the West. And the increase and acceptance of divorce. The stigma on divorce is losing its impact already. I think even in our part of the world, when we hear about divorce, it doesn't, shock us too much anymore. It's not headline news anymore, It's something that, the increase and acceptance of divorce. In 2017, when my husband and I were on our sabbatical and we were doing some research in Asbury, I came across an article which was just published, and it said 50% of marriages were failing in the United States in 2017. Recently, not too recent, but 2020, I read another article saying that the percentage has now risen to 60%. And so there are young people who are looking at the marriage institution and thinking it's pointless. Why head for something that's not going to work? Because young people today are thinking people. They want to go towards something that will be workable. If something is not going to work, why head for it? And so young people are not concerned about getting married anymore. They live together as husband and wife, just like husband and wife, but cohabitation, those things are there, but they're not for marriage, weddings, and things like that anymore because of the increase in divorce rates and the increase in the number of mothers joining the paid labor force. We can discuss these things further, but we know as a result of education, many women are now in the workforce. Many women now have a 9-to-4, 9-to-5 job, and that's a good thing. But mothers and fathers working have also had impact on the family. Some realities that cannot be stopped, some realities which are not necessarily bad, unless we head towards some choices with intention and with clear goals. Things are going wrong. Things have gone wrong for people. And again, we are a very young society. A lot of things that we are doing today, people have done it, centuries ago. For example, there was the Industrial Revolution in the 18th century, and since then, the labor force has increased because of the Industrial Revolution, which needed a lot of people, a lot of laborers, and as a result, not just men but women had to go and work, and because people need money to live, both men and women have headed for workplaces like that. And those things have affected family life. In family studies, we read about the latchkey kids, the latchkey kids. Children who come back from school in the afternoon, and because both the parents are working in some industry, some factory, the parents tie the key around the child's neck, and the child comes home and then opens the door themselves. And there's a generation of latchkey kids where children come home and parents are not there. And a lot of implications. Children coming home, parents somewhere, and then children having the freedom to do as they wish. So many implications. So the increase in the number of mothers joining the paid labor force has also had a lot of impact on the family. It has changed the face of the family. And the decrease in the amount of time parents are spending with their children as a result of being more busy than before. The art of engaging in heart-to-heart conversation takes a lesser role. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, parents are told to sit down and talk about God's goodness and tell of God's faithfulness, educate their children about the history of their people. Parents are to show through their lifestyle that God is good. And now, what's happening in the modern world is the amount of time parents are spending with their children is becoming less and less. The art of engaging in meaningful conversation is taking a lesser role. The myth of quality time, we parents like to comfort ourselves and say, quality time. I'm going to give my child quality time. I'll take my child out to KFC and then we'll have quality time. But people who study about family and about the psychology of children tell us that this idea of quality time is actually a myth. Because what children need is something that happens, just like that. Children cannot say, okay, at 3 p.m. I'm going to need my mother. At 4 p.m. I'm going to need my father. No. What happens to children can happen any time of the day. Parents cannot be available for their children, 24/7. For sure, that's not possible. But being able to catch up, being able to listen to stories, to experiences, to some events that took place in our absence, all those things are taking lesser importance in many families, and that's why there are missed opportunities. When a child comes back home from school, or when a child is at home playing, and then there's this moment, and the child wants to tell the mother or the father, and the mother is not there, the father is not there. When the child is having a problem, it could be with fixing something, a toy part or anything. For us adults, it can be something that's so insignificant, but for the child, it could be something major. And when the child wants to talk about that or show us that something has gone wrong, and they look for us and we're not there, missed opportunities, the rat race, the upward mobility race, high pressure careers. We're all in different workplaces. Our professions are all different. Some are have careers which have which demand more time and more stress also. And when there's more stress, what happens is parents come home. A lot of times, we don't leave our work in the office. We don't leave our moods and our feelings and emotions in the office. We come back home with them, and then a lot of times children get short-charged or ignored because parents come home carrying loads with them. And as a result, we have a new breed of orphans. Traditionally, we know orphans are children who have no parents, but modern times have birthed a new breed of orphans whose parents are there physically, but who are absent psychologically, mentally, and especially emotionally. There are many children who are living in a house with their parents, but they cannot talk about their deepest needs. They cannot express their deepest needs freely to their parents because they know their parents are too busy. They know their parents are engaged in something that they say are too important and for which they should not be disturbed. And so, very sad, but the reality is we have a new breed of orphans. And as a result, what is happening? Relational deprivation. Children are deprived of meaningful relationship. And as a result of that, there are lots of young people today who are walking around in our towns, in our cities, with deep needs, needy young people who are looking for, meaning, who are looking for relationship. God, and that's so important because God created us human beings to relate with one another. And the home should be the first place where children learn how to relate meaningfully with fellow human beings, starting with their parents and siblings and others. But when that is not happening, children grow up needy, and they carry this need and they go out into the big world, the world that does not promote biblical values. And they find someone who look at them and tell them they are beautiful or handsome, and they go haywire. They go crazy because for the first time someone is telling them they are beautiful or they are special. And it's alarming, it's scary. But a lot of our young people right here in Kohima are in toxic relationships. When they were getting into relationships, they had no idea they were getting into something that was not going to be good for them. But they get into relationships, and by the time they realize that it's not good for them, they are not able to get out again. And because of the internet, because of the photos that are exchanged, because of the text messages that have been exchanged, there's so much of blackmailing going on. And there are a lot of young people who are not able to get out from relationships they don't want anymore. And when we hear of suicide stories, we need not be too shocked, because a lot of our young people who have been deprived of meaningful relationship at home, coming out to the big world and finding some people who they thought would give them what they were looking for, are ending up feeling very, very disillusioned and sad. And the only solution they know is to end it. But that's the reality that we are seeing, and we're beginning to see more and more. Parental neglect. Someone said, parental neglect is the primary force promoting today's disturbed child. This is from a reviewer of the book, Why Good Parents Have Bad Kids by Kent Hayes. Parental neglect is the primary force promoting today's disturbed child. It's not the economy, it's not politics, it's not social problems, it's not the neighbors, it's not the school. It is parental neglect. It is us not giving our children our full attention, even when we are with them. And that's scary. Someone also said, we have the best group of educated parents in history doing the least for their own children. We know so much, and yet we're not able to deliver. We know so much, and yet it's not being seen in the actual practice. And that's a scary thing. The widening gap between teenagers and their parents. Why teens? Because we know as teenagers, as children turn into teens or preteens, a lot of changes take place in their bodies, in their minds, in their brains, in their social circles. And that's when fresh problems start entering homes. The widening gap between teenagers and their parents. The tragedy of a mom or dad who lost touch. A well-intentioned parent who quit listening. And there are so many things which we cannot do. But something which all of us can do is learn to listen to our children. Children have so many things to tell us every day. From our adult perspectives, a lot of things they talk about could be, too childish for us. But for them, it's their world. And spending time with them, it could be just 5 minutes also, listening to a story. Or listening to, something that they had created. But that could mean the world to them, and that could mean, something that's going to stay with them till the end of their lives also. Because there is this tragedy, one of the greatest tragedies is parents not listening enough to their children. Josh McDowell, he writes a lot of good books on parenting. He said, we talk to them, we talk at them, we may even pray for them, but many of us aren't listening to our kids. When a parent quits listening, believe me, our kids will find someone else who will listen. We parents also make the mistake of thinking that it's the school teachers, it's the Sunday school teachers who should be teaching our children. According to the Bible, that's not true. According to the Bible, the family should be the first place of education for the children. The family should be the place where children first learn the good things about life. The parents should be the first teachers for the children. Loneliness. Loneliness is fast becoming the heart condition of many young people today. Loneliness is something we don't see with our eyes, but because young people have been deprived of healthy relationships, they are lonely. They may have a lot of friends on social media, and yet inside, deep down, they are lonely. And that's fast becoming the heart condition of many young people today, right here in our part of the world. A wake-up call for parents who so easily miss what is happening with their children. This is from Mary Pfeiffer. To paraphrase a Stevie Smith poem about swimming in the sea, they are not waving, they are drowning. And just when they most need help, they are unable to talk to their parents. So what Mary Pfeiffer is saying is, our children are longing to talk to us, to connect with us. And a lot of times, they're looking for hints, they're looking for cues to see if mommy would listen, if daddy would have time to put his phone down, or mommy would put away whatever task she's into and listen. Some scary statistics here. 60% of American rapists, 72% of adolescent murderers, 70% of long-term prison inmates grew up without a dad. The good thing about the West is, whenever something happens, good or bad, they swing into research action. And if suddenly, they hear about a young man taking a gun, going to a school and shooting at people, by next week, for sure, people will be studying who this young man is. And so, there will be so many other research findings about how, because the mother was absent, because the father was absent, a needy child grew up angry, frustrated, just mad at the world, and becoming numb emotionally and doing terrible things. Dysfunctional family. We know the term dysfunctional refers to something that does not work as it should. So a dysfunctional family is a family where the most basic physical, psychological, and emotional needs of a child are not provided by the parents due to negligence, consciously or unconsciously. I don't think every parent intentionally ignores their children or refuses to provide the basic needs of children. But without intending to, we do a lot of things wrong as parents. A dysfunctional family is where the basic needs of a child are not met. One chief reason why many young people struggle to live life happily and wholeheartedly is because of wounds and scars they carry from childhood. This is helpful for us as parents to know, but this is also helpful for us as individuals to understand, because if we ourselves are people who are carrying things from the past, from our childhood experiences, which have made us the kind of people we are today, it's so important that we acknowledge those things, those ugly things in our lives. It's so important that we come to terms with them and work through them and resolve those issues and bring God into the picture and let God help us resolve our past. Because if we are people as parents, if we are individuals who are carrying scars and wounds from our own childhood experiences, and if we are parenting today, most likely we will inflict pain on our own children because we have never resolved our own issues. And that's why, if we want our families, if we want our homes to be healthy, as parents, we must learn to understand our childhood experiences, our own childhood experiences, especially the painful ones, resolve them with God's help, and claim healing through the name of Jesus Christ, through the work of Jesus Christ, and become healthy people, because our children deserve healthy parents. Someone said, there are common threads that exist between the brokenness of your yesterday and the difficulties of your today. Many times I've listened to young people share about their experiences growing up in homes where their fathers were drunkards, where their fathers were alcoholics. I particularly remember one young man who was very gifted. He despite his giftedness, he refuses to make good of what God has gifted him. In the course of our interactions, one day he said, I can't forgive my father. And so I knew there was a story there. So I asked him if he would care to talk about what happened, and he said, growing up, I was the eldest one in the family, and so I carried the brunt. My father would come home drunk almost every night, and he would come and create, a lot of chaotic, violent situation in our home. He would come and sometimes beat my mother. Sometimes he would beat us, the children. And because almost every night he would come and do that, I would stay up late. And because being the eldest one in the home, I needed to protect my mother. And so sometimes I would stay up till 12 midnight, 1 a.m., and protect my mother. And sometimes, because I had to stay up late like that, in fear, in dread, I would not be able to finish my homeworks, schoolworks, and I would go to school and get punished. And when I get punished, I would always blame my father in my mind. And for reasons like that, I hated my father. That was his story. And there are many, many other stories very, very similar to that. A young person who can do so much for God and His glory because of some childhood experiences that let him, accumulate so much of bitterness, is not able to bloom, is not able to thrive. And that can happen to any of us also. When we have our hands full with the past, we have no more space left to do good things for the future. And that's why it's so important that we understand why we struggle with some things now. Many of those things could have some things connected to the past. Emotional wounds that are never truly healed result in emotional scarring. And our society needs healthy families. And so if we want our society to be healthy, then we need healthy citizens. And if we are to have healthy citizens, then we need to be, looking deep into ourselves and asking, why am I always so angry? Why am I so unforgiving? Why am I like that? Why is he like that? Why is she like that? And help one another become healthier people for our own good, but also because God wants us to experience life and life in abundance. Family rituals of connection. So we've just looked at dysfunctional families and what can happen. What are some things that will help families connect better? Words of affirmation, saying positive things to one another. I mentioned to you about our firstborn, who's going to turn 24 tomorrow. Till the time I can remember, until today, since the time many years ago, till today, after every meal, he says, "Kitago, thank you, I've enjoyed the meal." Whether it's a special meal or not, my son has this habit, and he means it. He's someone who speaks very less, okay? So when he says something, I know he means it. He still says, after food, thanking me for cooking a meal for the family. And even though, I've heard it so many times, every day, whenever he's home, it has always warmed my heart. I have a husband who is always very appreciative of what I do as a mother, as a wife at home, especially in the kitchen. Someone who, generously says thank you to me, And words of affirmation, those are seemingly small things, but they are big things. They are like the glue that keeps the family together. It's so nice when we are able to appreciate one another. We know the phrase, familiarity breeds contempt. That need not apply to family members. Learning to appreciate one another, learning to say good things to one another. Physical touch, especially when our children are small, or even otherwise, between the spouses and between parents, children. Physical touch, meaningful time together, interactions, acts of service, helping out around the house, not expecting someone to do something all the time, doing the unexpected sometimes and surprising family members, doing, offering acts of service, gifts on special occasions, birthdays, Mother's Day, Father's Day, Christmas. Even without spending a lot of money, we can gift things to one another, showing our appreciation, showing our love. Family meals. We've heard the saying, a family that prays together stays together. But I think it is also equally true to say, a family that eats together stays together. Mealtime is a most natural time when family members interact. And we can interact about anything on the table. We can interact about food, we can interact about, what we're going to do today or what we did today, anything under the sun. So family meals and using family meal times to catch up, to chat, to find out more about one another. Couple rituals for the couples that children see, that children, even if, the parents don't turn to the children and tell them, look at us, we love each other, from some things that you do for each other, your children will see that you appreciate and value and honor and respect one another. So couple rituals, helpful ones. Community and religious rituals. Because we are a community-oriented society, it's also so important that we respect community things. Not just, our family and our family alone, but understanding that we have obligation to our bigger society and letting our children learn that, life is not just about our family, but it also involves our neighbors. It also involves our church members. It also involves, the whole of Nagaland or beyond also. Community and religious rituals. Rituals of passage, connecting with family during weddings and funerals, talking about human connections, networking. Again, statistics. 100% of the young people from a study of top high school achievers in the US came from families where at least once a day they sat down and shared a meal together. I think because our lives are so, full now, it's impossible to have every meal together as husband and wife or as parents and children. But intentionally, planning to come together for at least one meal a day and being realistic and being practical about it. We have many homes where, helpers cook for the family and the family members come at any time they want and have their food or take their food and go to their rooms and have. We may see that as something we see in movies, but in reality, if we want our families to be healthy, I think it's so important that we have some rituals and even rules within the family where we insist that the family come together and eat together. The problem with today's families is not the presence of evil influences outside. It is chiefly the absence of emotional, psychological, and spiritual strength on the inside. Someone said that, and I think that's very true. We can't stop what is happening outside. We can't stop globalization from coming to our part of the world. We can't stop the internet and block everything on the internet. No. There are many things which are beyond our control. We can't stop all these evil influences that are, floating around in schools, in our neighborhoods, in our towns. But one thing we can do is we can build strength within. We can build wisdom. We can build resilience within ourselves and also in our children. What is the family if it is not meeting the children, their most basic and crucial needs? Build strong, healthy kids. And when I say healthy, I'm not necessarily talking about physical healthiness, but emotional health, mental health, good mental health, spiritual health. As we nurture our children in the right way, and as we help them grow holistically, not just in academics, not just in some extracurricular activity that they do outside their school, but more importantly, in matters of morality, in matters of spirituality, if we can take time and intentionally invest in our children so that they will grow up to be healthy people with healthy perspectives about themselves and healthy perspectives on others and on the world, that will go a long way. Childhood is an unrepeatable miracle. What's gone is gone, and that's why it's so important that we learn to value what we have. And when we talk about parenting, we are all at different stages. I said, I don't think any parent can come to a place where he or she can say, I have arrived. I don't know if someone can say that. For me, I don't think I can say that. Because when my children were first born and when they were babies, the challenges, the joys, the thrills, the blessings were different. As they became toddlers, and as they started going to school, as they entered high school, as they went to college, the challenges, the blessings, the joys, everything changed, and they'll continue to change, I know. But one thing I have resolved to do, and one thing we can all resolve to do, is appreciate the season that you are in with your children and value that moment, because that's never going to come again. Fortunately for my husband and me, our boys were like best buddies. They're best friends. And so they were, a lot of times they were able to play together and do things together. And they did not trouble us too much with unnecessary things. And they were able to create, joyful situations for themselves also. They had a blast, growing up together as brothers. And they have so many memories. Sometimes when we sit down and talk about, our days in Bangalore or our days in Kohima, sometimes they would remember some incidents which I don't remember anymore, but some things which meant so much to them. And they're able to remember some places we took them to. And sometimes, only when I'm going through some old albums, I'm able to recollect and, oh yeah, okay. But for our children, they're able to remember some people they met when we were traveling. And they have good memories of some places, some people. And those things are so important because some things can never be repeated again. Letting our children collect good memories at whatever stage of life they are in. So what can families do today? We cannot change the past. That's something we cannot do. But there are some things we can work towards. We can work towards creating healthier and happier families by doing some things. Understand God's love for each individual. Work on one's childhood memories, and understand why some things happened the way they happened, and working on what can be changed for the better through God's help, or accepting what cannot be changed. Earlier, We talked about the changing face of the family. We talked about the traditional family. We talked about the single family, the blended families, the extended families. There are some things which we cannot stop. We cannot stop divorce. We cannot stop people who have divorced to, go and get married again. There are some things which are beyond our control. But for our children, there are some things which are even, more beyond their control. Parents don't ask their permission when they're going to get divorced. Parents don't ask the opinion of the children when they're going to separate, because they're too busy, with their own problems. And a lot of times when separations and divorce take place, children carry the brunt. And we know, experts tell us that unless children are helped through processes like that, they can have lasting impact on them, and that can come and disturb them again in the future. But talking about blended families and such, fragmentation that we see in family life, in the family landscape in these times, there are things we cannot stop. But when some things happen, we can still talk about those things and see what can be done best next. A lot of times, when something goes wrong, we make it gossip material, and then we talk about it, we spread the news, and we stop there. And we fail to ask ourselves, what can I do to help this family take the next steps? How can I help this young person whose parents have gotten divorced to pick up the pieces again and, make the most of life again? How can I help this divorcee who's gone through a lot for his fault, her fault, or whatever, okay? But how can we make amends? How can we help this family build up a future again? Those are things that we can all be contributing towards. So we can work towards creating healthier and happier families by helping people work through problems that they have, by listening to them, by letting them know that we still love them despite some terrible things they might have done. Understand God's love for each individual. Work on one's childhood memories and understand why some things happened the way they happened. Ask for God's help in your difficulties. Ask for God's help to forgive your parents or children if you feel the need. There may be some of us who have terrible memories of our childhood because of what our parents did. Those things were beyond our control. But what is within our control today is to learn to understand why some things happened the way they happened, and learning to let go, learning to forgive if necessary. Someone said, and Howard Hendricks, he's a famous Christian education person, and he's also someone, a very strong advocate of healthy families. His own story is a very tragic one. He grew up in a home where his parents did not live together, and the father walked out even before this guy was born. And he said he saw his father for the first time in court when he was 18, when he was asked to testify about his mother and father in court. And that was the first time and the last time he saw his father. And so he grew up in a home that was not a home at all. And he had so many experiences, terrible experiences. By God's grace, God found him, okay, and he found God, and a lot of good has happened since. He said, we tend to react against the negatives of our parents while failing to reproduce the positives. There are always positives we can find in any situation, and so this is good advice. Reproducing the positives. Claim God's grace and power to break unhelpful and unhealthy cycles of abuse, shame, guilt, and anger in your family. Again, there are so many stories of abuse. We think our society is doing okay. In a lot of fields and in a lot of areas, our society is doing okay. That's true. But there are some areas where many things are going very wrong. 2 years ago, a young lady got married, and she got married happily, and I've always been so happy for her. Her story, a Naga, her story is so sad. She was abused repeatedly from the time she was in class 2. And she thought, she grew up thinking this is life, to be abused by men again and again. She thought that was life, normal life, until a time came when, she understood the love of God, and she understood that her body was something meant to honor God, and a lot of things happened in her life, and then she gave her life to God, and then she was able to understand and realize that people had done so many terrible things to her. And she, as a result of what happened to her, she grew up hating men. And so, until a time came when she was able to resolve all those issues, she was a very negative, unpleasant person. But through God's help, she was able to submit all those things to God and let God help her overcome her difficulties. And so when she got married, when she met this wonderful man and got married 2 years ago, happily, and she's happily married today, that's a story that's so heartwarming. But there are so many other young girls who are not married yet, or who could be married, but who are living with terrible memories, terrible experiences in their lives, sad realities. It's so important that we bring these conversations in the open, and the church is the right place to do it, where we provide safe spaces for people to unload, to tell their terrible, ugly stories, painful stories, and help them, hand over the pain to God, and asking God to break the unhelpful, unhealthy cycles in people's lives. Understand that each member has a role to fulfill. Each member in the family has a role to fulfill. Claim the fact that you are a gift, and determining to live life to the fullest with God and for God. Psalm 127:3 says, you are a gift. Children are a gift. We are parents today, but we are all children to our parents also. We are gifts. Our parents are gifts. Our children are gifts. So important for us to claim that fact for ourselves and determine to live for God. We can rearrange priorities, determine to build good, happy memories for everyone in the family. Stay connected at any cost. Relate, interact, connect. Know the difference between biblical and cultural standards. Christian standards ought to be biblical. We Nagas are well known for being gullible. We are also a lot of times, well known for being so good at imitating others or doing what others do, and sometimes doing it even better than others. Sometimes, when we live our lives doing as others do, we can head for the wrong direction. We can go to the wrong direction and lead our family to destruction also. A lot of cultural changes are going on in the world, and social media is there to bring everything to our homes. And if we're not careful, we can let cultural standards dictate the way we decide things for our families and for ourselves also. So as Christian parents, it's so important for us to know the difference between what is biblical and what is not. Because everything that is happening around us culturally may not be in line with what the Word of God says. Be very clear on your personal principles and convictions as a parent. Sooner or later, they will get caught by those coming behind. Romans 14:5. Let each man or woman be fully convinced in his mind. If having rules in our homes, this is the way our family will live. This is the way our family will do family. Having our own convictions, having reasons for why we do some things the way we do, having our own philosophy of doing family. As parents, we have to be the ones who set the trend. We can't let our children say, they do like that. They go there during holidays, they travel to that place, my classmates are saying that they do like that, their family do like that, We can't let our children come and tell us what the world is doing and how the world is doing. We as parents, we need to be people who are calling the shots, because that's what God intended right from the start, that parents put down the rules and do things in God-honoring manner and let children learn from us parents. You, whether you are a parent, a child, a family member, are a gift. Therefore, you are and you can be a blessing to your family, your neighborhood, your church, your nation. Each of us can learn to love the way we should, because we have a God who showed us how to love. A lot of times, I've dwelt at length on past childhood, unpleasant past experiences. Sometimes we fail to learn how to love in the right way, but through God's help, we can learn how to love. We can learn to love the way we should, because we have God who showed us the best example of love. We also have a God who longs to help us set our hearts on eternity. Invest for eternity. Family need not be only for a lifetime. Think beyond this life. We can, all of us as parents, we hope to have a wonderful family. But if our plan and our hope and our dream to have a wonderful family is limited only to this lifetime, then that's incomplete. Because there is life beyond this earth. There is life beyond now. Meaning, as parents, we need to be thinking or keeping eternity in perspective. We need to be helping our children understand that life is more than today. Life is more than now. Matthew 16:26 and Mark 8 also talks about, for what shall it profit a man if he gains the whole world but loses his soul? When we think of that verse and think about our families, it's wonderful to have a wonderful family on earth. But if that's going to be, that wonderful story is going to end there, then that's tragedy. We need to be thinking not only for this life, but also for eternity. So as parents, let us start thinking about where our children's soul will go one day. Let us start thinking about where our children would go one day when they die, when they finish their journey on earth. And so let's not just parent for now and for planet Earth, but let us keep eternity in perspective. And to do that, we as parents need to know God well. We as parents need to learn to rest in God. We as parents must remember that we have a true habitat, a true home, which is being with God, knowing God and being with Him. And if we are people who know where our true home is, or who our true home is, which is God, then surely we will be able to parent our children with the right attitude, with the right burden, with the right concern, with the right joy and hope. Because our families are in need of so much of joy. Our families are in need of so much of peace and laughter and love. And if our children cannot find those in the homes that they are in, then they're going to go looking for these precious gifts elsewhere. And so as parents, let us remember that God has given us the privilege and also the opportunity to lead young people, little people, to live life on earth, but more than that, to know Him. I want to end by reading Psalm 127. Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat, for He grants sleep to those He loves. Children are a heritage from the Lord, offspring a reward from Him. Like arrows in the hands of a warrior are children born in one's youth. Blessed is the man whose quiver is full of them. They will not be put to shame when they contend with their opponents in court. The important thing is, unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. We dream for our families, but unless the Lord builds our homes, unless we allow God to build our houses and our homes for us, the builders labor in vain. Let us partner with God in this amazing, exciting journey of parenting. I've taken a lot of time, but I did not say it in the beginning, but your pastor gave me the liberty to take as much time as I want. So I've leisurely taken as much time as I wanted. Yeah, thank you so much for your attention. Yeah.